Hello, thank you for joining us. This is the Japanese Gaming Podcast. We've reached episode number two. I am Play On Go, and joining me today is Joe X Corn Muffin X.
How are you today, Matt?
Not too bad. And yourself?
Pretty good. Not so bad at all.
So, the topic for today, the last video we did was kind of going into the new year here. We were talking about the next generation of video game consoles, and today we're going to move on to handhelds and talk a little bit about those.
Yes, this is a topic I'm really excited about because in the past year or year and a half or so, I've been become like a major handheld gamer. Like, wouldn't have thought of that recent 2 years ago. If you said that, I would have been like, nah, I still like my consoles more. But recently,
Really,
yeah,
I
I
didn't
almost
realize that was a
never
recent thing.
almost I used to play handhelds. It's not that I didn't play them. It's just that I didn't play them as much as the consoles at all. Like I have so many more console games than I do handheld games. But now, like I buy more handheld games than console games.
Do do you know, like, is there something in particular you would attribute that shift to?
I don't know. I think a lot of the time it just has to do with how I'm playing. So sometimes, I come home from work and I don't feel like, sitting in front of the TV. Like I feel like lying down on a couch or something. And I can do that and play the consoles, but it's more comfortable to do it on a handheld. You can just like put
Hmm.
that close to your face and it's like playing on a big screen.
No, I mean, that's surprisingly simple, but something I hadn't really considered. I mean, I guess another thing, like I've found is it's nice, if you're going to bed and you really want, like, I don't know, instead of reading a book or something like that, it's really nice to, like, sometimes I'll go straight from console to handheld and then just fall asleep, you never have to stop gaming.
Yeah, I do that too. In that sometimes I have like a little area where I put my console near my bed, not my console, my handheld next to the bed, and I'll play it before I go to sleep. But what happens is like I bring my handheld with me when I go to work. So like when I'm on the train, I play the handheld, and then when I'm on my lunch break, I usually continue whatever I'm playing. So sometimes what happens is I get into the game and then I come home and I'm like, well, I could play on a different game on my consoles, but I've been playing this game today already, so I should just continue on my handhelds, and it's easier to just do that. So I tend to play handhelds a lot now.
Sure. So, I mean, I can't pass up this opportunity to ask about this topics just because of where you are. I mean, do you have a long commute and like do you see other people like playing handhelds? Is it I mean, I wouldn't assume it's super common, but um
I think I pretty much always see people playing handhelds on the train. It's not like everybody is playing them, but I usually see like one or two other people. But I don't have a really long commute. I'm only on the train for like 15 minutes to my job. It's not that far from my house. So,
yeah.
I just play whatever I'm playing for a couple minutes on the train, and then I, go to my job, and then I play like a half hour during lunch, and then I play another 15 minutes when I go home. So it's just kind of like that hour of play a day is enough to usually, if I'm gonna play a game, I usually just continue on the handheld.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Um you're making me flash back a little bit just remembering when I was gaming on my PSP more, and I don't really bring a handheld with me to work right now, but I used to at a previous job, and I actually would encode episodes of anime to the format that would play on the PSP. So I'd be able to watch maybe like with an hour lunch break, I could sometimes cram like three episodes in and then go back to work. So I was taking advantage of the video capabilities of the system as well.
That's a good idea actually. I don't do that because generally if I watch stuff, I watch it on my phone.
Okay,
So
yep.
like actually what I end up doing is that either at work I like stay at my desk and put on YouTube videos and play games. So I'm like I have headphones in, I'm playing games and watching YouTube, or put a movie on my phone or something and do that. So watch
Yep.
the phone and the handheld at the same time.
That sounds like I was just switching back and forth between watching Crunchyroll on my PS4 and playing my Vita.
So yeah, I think we should we should talk about the handhelds themselves for a little bit. I mean, obviously the next generation of handhelds has been out for a while now. So we've got our PlayStation Vita and a 3DS. So why don't we talk about a little bit about how we feel about each system, which what stuff we like about them, maybe stuff we don't like about them, and you know, give our kind of impressions, I guess.
Sure. No, that sounds perfect.
So how about why don't we talk about the older of the two? I guess the 3DS. 3DS is older, right? Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay. So
So, yeah, do you want to start or?
sure. Okay. So 3DS. Well, I didn't actually buy a 3DS right away. I have my console buying rule of that I need 10 games I want to play on the system before I buy it.
Right.
And what happened was the 3DS, it had a really slow start for me. I'm not much of a Nintendo fan, as I probably said a million times before. Like, I don't really enjoy, like, Mario or Zelda or stuff like that. So, the things to buy on the 3DS, even though, like, people get excited for the earlier stuff, the Nintendo made stuff, like, it doesn't excite me. So, I didn't actually get a 3DS until the LL came out, or the, what is it in the US, XL?
I believe so.
Okay, so the but I got the LL in whenever the LL came out. So I mean, pretty much the first day it came out, I got that.
I was gonna say, do you have a special version of it? But I guess if you got it first day, it's probably just kind of the vanilla.
Yeah, I just have a regular red one. There was no special version when I got mine. I would have got the Shin Megami Tensei one, but I had already bought the system by then.
Not a system collector like Games of War.
No, man, I can't do that. I can't afford that really. And like even though I technically I guess I could buy more systems like duplicate systems for the special ones, but I feel like if I'm gonna spend like another $200 or whatever, I might as well just buy $200 worth of games because that's more fun to me.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way.
So I guess I'll start. Well, when did you get the 3DS? Did you get it pretty early or?
Um, I didn't get the 3DS early, although I guess the same as you. I got it after here the XL was already out. Um, and additionally, I even went as far as to pick it up used.
Okay,
Um, because I wasn't prepared to sort of fork out a lot for the hardware. Um, but for me, again, it was I really needed a killer app on it. And I think what I was waiting for was Bravely Default.
okay,
So once I heard that that was definitely being localized, that really opened up the 3DS for me. And not only that, but also Project Cross Zone came out. So I believe that it was it probably coincided with the release of Project Cross Zone is when I picked that up.
oh okay. So I don't know. Project Cross Zone is like a kind of a mixed game in that overall it's not a very good game, but
Hmm.
it's the kind of thing like it starts out strong and just gets worse and worse as you go along. But
Uh-huh.
it's the kind of game like if you're a fan of those companies, like you still want to play it. That's how I felt. That's how I felt when playing it. Like towards the end, I felt like these maps are so long and all of them are the same. They all have the
Uh-huh.
same setup. And what happened is like it got really awful. It felt really bad to play it after all the characters were introduced. Like
Well, just
once you knew
there's
there weren't gonna be any more new characters, it was just like, oh man, I'm just gonna have to go through more maps without anything new and exciting happening.
Right, right. And I mean also like it seemed like they would just get kind of long and drawn out. I mean, you can sort of save in the middle if I remember correctly, so maybe it's not that big a deal, but I just started getting to battles where they're like, okay, it's a half hour, it's 40 minutes. I mean, I don't really remember how long
No,
they
yeah,
got, but
they there are that long. They get really
yeah.
long towards the end. In the beginning, they're really snappy. It's like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You're just like, yeah,
Yeah.
sweet.
Yep. But yeah, there's something fun about just having a party sort of. They were always grouped together with what is it like? I guess you had sort of the main character and then the support characters.
Yeah, I think like the thing with that is like it's pretty much Namco cross Capcom.
Hmm.
I mean, it plays the exact same way, and it's got different characters obviously, but even the game setup is the same. Like how almost every map has like you almost kill everybody and then like a million reinforcements show up every time.
Yeah,
That happened in
which I
Namco Cross Capcom. That happened at, like almost every map.
yeah that got a little bit old.
Yeah, it's like it got to the point where like in the game they were like this seems to happen to us a lot.
Right,
It's the kind of thing where like even they know they were overusing it, yet they still overused it.
right, right. Um, but I agree. I mean, it's fun having like a party with Frank West and Chun-Li and Morrigan from Darkstalkers or something like that. Like, um, there's something interesting about just that mashup of characters.
Okay, so yeah, like back on the main topic of the 3DS, I think the reason I think the first game I got for the 3DS actually was probably Devil's Summoner, or oh yeah, it must have been Devil's Summoner when that came out, which was like July of 2012, maybe. I don't remember when it came out in Japan,
Hmm.
but it was around then, and I picked that up, and I thought, I actually already have that game on the PlayStation One, so it's a game that I'd have already played, but I figured I'd get it, and it's all right, pretty good. But you know, the thing is like everyone was really excited for that game, and I know a lot of people liked it, and I like it. It's a good game, but it's an old game in the sense that they didn't really update it all that much for the 3DS. It's like almost the same game as the PlayStation One,
Hmm.
and the thing with that game specifically is that it's like the it's weird to say this because I know a lot of people thought it was hard, but that one is actually built as the Devil Summoner for like more like the entry point for the series. Like it was built like specifically less complicated and less difficult than the first game in the series, so that people
Okay,
would be more interested in it.
sure.
So it's kind of like the thing like when that one came out, or initially people were really it was the kind of thing where people were complaining like, oh, it's dumbed down, it's not as difficult, it's that kind of game. So like it's I mean it sold well, but it was also the kind of thing where people had a lot of complaints about it. So it's the kind of like love it or hate it people who were like it's not as good as the first one, or people who were like I like it more than the first one because it's not as complicated.
Yep. Now, how did you fall on that spectrum?
I'm kind of actually in the middle only because like the first one, it is less complicated. It's much more simple than the first one. But the first one itself is like flawed in the sense that it's not ridiculously difficult, but it's convoluted. Like everything you do takes so much time, and sometimes like it fails after a long amount of time, and you have to like redo all this stuff. It's the kind of thing where like negotiating with demons in the first one takes forever and like it always fails. So it's the kind of thing where it's frustrating. So like they actually, it's a lot simpler and it's easier than the first game, but it's also fixed. So I can't really hate on it for that, even though it's easier, because it still ends up being like more fun to play.
Right. I mean, that sounds like a win, kind of an overall win to me.
Yeah.
So, how many? games do you have for the
The
3DS?
3DS.
Did you get your 10?
Oh yeah, I have I think 14 or so games for the 3DS.
Wow.
Um, the the initial 10. I don't even think I bought all the initial 10 actually. Um, just more stuff started coming out, and sometimes, you know, what happens with my list of 10 games I need to buy is not necessarily that I'll actually buy those games. They just have to be games that I'm interested in enough to think about buying to put on the list.
Sure.
So sometimes, like, I'll make the list of 10 and buy the system, and then later on, more details will come out about a game, and I'll be like, I don't really want that. So I'll just take it off the list, but I've already got the system already, so it's kind of too late at that point.
I mean, it sounds like it's a good barometer just for, if the system is building up just some mass in terms of the games that are coming out that, even if you didn't get all of those, there are enough games coming out that you're interested in that, you'll be interested in other games.
Yeah, that's generally how I feel. And I feel like with 10 games, if there were 10 games total, like, and then the system disappeared for some reason, or they just, like, no other games I ever wanted ever came out for the system, 10 is fine. I'd be okay with that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, really, my collections for systems that I feel are really lean, but they're just down to the best games on the system that I'm really nostalgic for, and that, I'm satisfied playing them. They're usually about 15 games.
Yeah, I think that is about my Wii collection. Like, it's about 15 games.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. How about you? How many games do you have for the 3DS?
Yeah, for the 3DS, I think I'm currently sitting on two,
Two.
with a third one coming up soon. So yeah, I have Code of Princess,
Okay.
Project Cross Zone, and Bravely Default is pre-ordered. I'm very excited. I actually haven't checked out the demo for it, mostly just because I feel like I'm sold on it already. So I'll check it out when I actually get it.
I'm not how big a fan of Final Fantasy are you?
Um, Strangely enough, I played the first one, and then I pretty much had a break until 8, and I feel like I've sort of played more of the newer ones than the ones that it seems like more people have fondness for, like, that happened in the middle there. Um, so I feel like they've kind of gotten better with each consecutive one, like 10, 12, 13. Maybe arguably, I kind of liked 12 in particular. Um, so, like, how big a Final Fantasy fan? I guess moderate.
Okay. Well, the Bravely Default, the system is a lot like Final Fantasy 3, not the US Final Fantasy 3, the Japanese Final Fantasy 3. So, like, there's a
Yes.
job system, and you're, like, kind of running through jobs with all your characters. And
So is it like the Final Fantasy Tactics jobs?
yeah, it's similar in that way. Like, you change the characters' jobs to give them different abilities, and they'll learn the abilities as they raise up through the ranks of the job.
Yep.
That's yeah, it's a pretty old style Final Fantasy system. Did you ever play like Four Heroes of Light on the DS?
I did not.
The system is like almost exactly like that.
Okay.
I guess like you can get the Four Heroes of Light bosses as DLC in that game.
Nice.
So it's pretty much just like a continuation, and it feels like Final Fantasy 2. Like, the items are the same. Like, there's Phoenix Downs and potions and whatever. It's
Yep. So, I mean, have you played the game start to finish?
no, I,
Okay.
I'm not like a huge fan of it. I don't know why. It's not awful, and it's really cheap here because the original one is not the one you guys are getting. You're getting like the updated one.
Hmm.
I guess, like, the original one is the one I have. It's really cheap, and I haven't even finished it, and I probably won't go back to it. It just, like, wasn't. I don't know. I just wasn't really enjoying it that much.
Hmm.
It's not even a bad game. It just wasn't what I wanted to play at the time, and I don't feel like I want to start again because I don't remember what was happening in the story.
Right. Right. I mean, I feel like games like they have a period of time after which they become stale. You know, and I don't think it's it's a set period of time, but it's kind of how long you have interest in playing a game that's on your shelf until you just don't have interest in it anymore, whether you've actually gotten around to playing it or not.
Yeah, I kind of see that. I have some games that I've had on my shelf that I haven't played for a long time. And like mostly it's not stuff that I bought. It's usually stuff that people give me. So like I have a friend in the US who sends me stuff that he doesn't want anymore. Like
Uh-huh.
instead of sending it to GameStop, he sends it to me. And
I think he's getting a better deal.
yeah, but I have stuff like Dead Rising 2 that I played like an hour of and never went back to.
Uh-huh.
And I have like BioShock 2 that I never played. Stuff like that. Just stuff that, my friends recommended that I should play, and I thought like, oh yeah, I'll probably play that, and then I never actually do. So I think like I have Fable 3 also that I haven't even touched, but it's the kind of thing where maybe I'll eventually get the itch to play those games, so I just keep them in a special section on my shelf, like games I should probably play at some point.
Yeah, it's like the rainy day shelf.
Yeah, it's just that shelf always it gets bigger more so than smaller for the most part. So it's a lot of the times some of those games are hard to get to.
So, I guess just thinking about the 3DS, when I first got mine, um, one of my friends was like, "Oh, like, I have my 3DS," and he's like, "Let's, have you made your me or something like that, whatever the people are that you make." And
Yeah,
I was like, "No." So I did that, and then we did some kind of, I
friend
don't even
friend
know if it,
codes.
yeah, I forget what it's called. But I guess you can play like these little mini games with your systems with friends, and I don't know, maybe accrue points or something like that. Um, I don't know, like how much have you played around with that kind of stuff on the
Um,
the 3DS?
well, I've done like the street pass stuff.
Street Pass, that's what it's called.
So I've done a lot of street passing because if I go outside and I like bring my 3DS with me to work, I usually get about 10 per day. So it's pretty, I can do it pretty quickly, and I do that every once in a while. Whenever I bring my 3DS somewhere, it's usually street passing is on, so it's fun. It's kind of I kind of enjoy that actually, much more so than how the Vita's version of it. But the Street Pass has those games are fun. I didn't buy all the extra ones, but the kind of Street Pass RPG they have in there in the puzzle piece collecting. I guess I do that.
I guess what does it get you? Does it just like unlock more areas in the game and stuff like that, or
Yeah, essentially. I mean, the what happens is the Street Pass uses your me as an avatar.
okay,
And when you play those games, like if you play the RPG, you can unlock like hats for your avatar. So you can unlock like basically like avatar clothing, I guess, for your Mii's. That's about it though. And I don't know if there's extra stuff on the new games. Like they have released a bunch of new games, but they're all cost money, I guess. So you have like a shooter and I don't remember like a side scroller, I think. But they're it's pretty interesting, but I'm not really into it. I just I do it once the my kind of queue fills up for those, and then I just collect all the puzzle pieces. Yeah, the puzzle pieces just give you like 3D models or scenes to look at. So
okay.
sometimes you can like zoom around in 3D like a model of like Mario or something, or Samus from Metroid. And then sometimes it's just like a kind of a goofy 3D scene you can use with the 3D slider to like look at in 3D.
Well, that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I mean, I actually really enjoyed that as a function. I thought it was pretty cool when I first got the 3DS. I thought, well, like another bonus to that is that a lot of games use it, like in the game. Like for example, in Shin Megami Tensei 4, if you leave on Street Pass for that game, like sometimes you'll have like a random demon fusion show up in your party. Like somebody's random Street Pass demon will fuse with your random Street Pass demon to create a new demon for your party.
Huh. Now, like, is that something where you can set like what of your
Yeah, yeah.
demons are publicly available or something? Or
Yeah, you have to set the one that's you have tagged for Street Pass.
okay.
But there a lot of games do stuff like that where there's a kind of Street Pass feature. Like I believe in Animal Crossing, there's a Street Pass feature where you can like go to the dream town of the person. Like a dream town is like this special town that you make with unlimited resources, I guess, to make it how you want to make it.
Hmm.
But you kind of Street Pass those with people to view their dream town. There's a bunch of stuff. I can't remember all the other ones. I'm trying to look at my games to see which ones had stuff, but I know a bunch of other games had stuff that were Devil Summoner had some kind of points you got to get special demons.
No, it's interesting when you talk about it. Like, I think a lot of people are criticizing Nintendo for um, you sort of being behind the times or being a little just kind of stuck in sort of old ways of thinking. Um, but something like that, I mean, it sounds pretty forward thinking and sort of social. I mean, again, it seems like it's maybe involving physical proximity a little bit more than just social features that are happening, strictly online. But
Yeah, yeah, it's the thing that it's the kind of thing that's simultaneously like progressive and regressive. Do
mhm,
you understand what I mean? Like it is a cool
sure.
new feature and it's exciting and I like it, but it is literally like involves proximity. So if you live in the middle of nowhere and nobody around you has a 3DS, you're never going to be able to use that feature.
Right, which that's what I was going to mention is the situation that I'm in. If I take my,
Yeah, I was going
my
to say like
3DS to work, yeah, well, I mean, I shouldn't say that actually. I am around college students, so you know, maybe I should try it. It's possible, but I have a feeling that it would be pretty slim pickings.
yeah, that's the thing. Like I get street passes every time I go out of the house, so it's really easy for me. But I'm sure they're not considering like that kid in Iowa who is like has like 1,000 people in his town.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody that goes to school like the one in Non Biori. So so I guess if you don't mind me asking you more questions, have you been using the online store much for the 3DS?
I've used it a couple times. I know a lot of people really like it, but I find that it's kind of slim pickings unless you want virtual console games.
Right. Now, I mean, it kind of took me by surprise, like the amount of just really interesting stuff it seemed like was coming out on the Wii in terms of like PC Engine games and Sega Mega Drive games, some things that had never been released in the West before and stuff like that was coming out um, on the Virtual Console. Um, do you know if the 3DS has a similar library? I mean, I should just be checking myself, but I haven't.
There's no games past the 8-bit generation, I guess, on the 3DS Virtual Console.
Hmm.
So there's no Super Nintendo games or Game Boy Advance games unless you were an ambassador and got those free ones that they gave out.
Right. Yep. Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't expect that would be a technical limitation. So,
Yeah, it's weird that they would, not offer those because they are offered on the Wii U. Like they have a section already on the Wii U and on the Wii. So it seems like, they would just throw those over to the 3DS, but they haven't, and I don't know if they plan to, which is, kind of disappointing because a lot of the games that I'd want to play are, Super Nintendo or Super Famicom games.
right. I mean, it might not be that different from the way that the Vita can't play any PlayStation 2 games, whereas those are available on the PlayStation 3.
Yeah, although that actually might be a hardware limitation.
Hmm.
Whereas I don't think the 3DS is so weak that it couldn't emulate a Super Nintendo game. I mean, that seems impossible.
Right, right.
And plus, they've already done it. That's the thing. Like those games, part of the Ambassador program, were Game Boy Advance and Super Nintendo games.
Yeah, no, that I mean that proves that it's it's something that they can put on there, and not only that, but I mean if there's some I don't know what it would be a licensing thing or something. I mean,
Yeah, but even then, like they could release their own games. There's no licensing for,
yeah,
Super Metroid to Nintendo.
right.
But those kind of things, like I don't know, it's kind of like a weird decision. I think I'm not sure. I mean, there could be a technical issue why they're not doing it, but it seems like the proof that they can do it is already there. So why they're
Right.
not is kind of weird to me.
So what do you think are the strengths of the 3DS?
Um, well, first, I like the 3DS hardware. Um, it's easy to carry around. It's nice to look at. I mean, it's not. Obviously, it doesn't look as good as the Vita does, but it still looks good for what it is. And I feel like the 3DS has a different kind of software base than the Vita does.
Hmm.
So the kinds of games that show up on the 3DS are usually not similar in type to the games that show up on the Vita. So like if you looked at my collections side by side, they're really different in terms of the content, except for first person dungeon crawlers, which seem to do well on both systems.
Do c- do you see any like particular themes in that? I guess just in terms of like the because from what you said, you aren't really a big fan of the Nintendo first party games. So I'm just kind of curious out of the third party library on the 3DS if a particular kind of company or sort of style of game stands out or in particular.
Well, for me, the 3DS, I play a bunch of mostly RPGs, I think, on the 3DS. So almost all of my games are either first person dungeon crawlers or, strategy RPGs or, I guess, other types of RPGs. They're
Hmm.
mostly RPGs. I think, like, looking at my games, like, I have Code of Princess also. And I have, I guess, a beat 'em ups is the other one that's more of because I also have that
Oh yeah.
Kunio Kun
Yep.
game, and
And that Metal Max you were talking about, that's
that's third person RPG.
yep.
So pretty much the 3DS, I buy almost only RPGs, and I have like a simulation game, but there's not actually that many on either system right now. But I also have Animal Crossing, but it's that was a game that somebody bought for me.
Yep. Yeah, that's a series I've never really played.
It's weird because like I uh, got into that on the GameCube. All my friends had it, and it was really fun to play. But mostly, I just like to unlock the. You could unlock NES games in the game,
Oh wow, okay.
so you could unlock kind of Nintendo Virtual Console. It was like the GameCube's version of the Virtual Console. So I would just play that, and mostly just to unlock NES games.
I mean, I think that's kind of ingenious. If yeah, I really think more of these sort of shopping portals and things like that should really just be integrated into games.
Yeah, well, like the thing with the that one is that it's not a shopping portal so much as it's just free games.
Right.
There wasn't a portal on the GameCube, but now they won't do that anymore because they actually can sell them out on the eShop. So that's kind of the downside now.
Yeah.
It's the kind of game like I played a bit of like Animal Crossing, and I played it for a couple months. I played it every day, but every day for like 20 minutes or so, and mostly just because my friends bought it for me and they're like, you have to play with us. So I would just do like the minimum amount of upkeep to my town and then turn it off. I don't I kind of understand why people like it, but on the other hand, I feel like it it feels like a chore simulator. Like,
Hmm.
oh, I gotta cut grass now. Oh, I gotta, clean up garbage. That's the kind of thing where like I feel like, why is this fun again?
Right. Well, it's like you already have a job, right? And actually, you already clean your apartment and et cetera, et cetera. So,
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess like if I were a kid, well, it would feel different. But it's not even like the people who I play with aren't kids. Obviously, like they all have jobs and families and stuff. But
yeah.
it's the kind of thing where they still enjoy it. I I kind of I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it, but I didn't love it or anything. I just feel like a lot of the time I feel like, why am I playing this? It's the kind of thing where it after a while I just quit because I feel like, well, this doesn't do anything for me. It's just like I'm logging in daily to do chores.
Right, right. I mean, it sounds like an MMO basically.
Yeah, there are good features to it. It's fun to like goof around with your friends, and like mostly I just spent my time trying to play practical jokes on my friends in their towns. So that was essentially it. I mean,
Nice. Just thinking about the 3DS. For me, I mean, I guess obviously I don't have very many games for it. Um, but one thing that I really found interesting about it, especially like when I do travel or like, I'm getting in the car and I'm gonna go someplace, it feels, I mean, I also have the small one that isn't the XL. So, it's a clamshell case, and somehow it just feels easier to grab. I don't actually put it in my pocket, but I don't feel as bad about like throwing it in a bag as I do my Vita. Um, and I even think the investment in just sort of taking it out and opening it up and playing it seems a little bit less than the Vita too. Although I'm actually getting much more accustomed to using my Vita and just having it around, having it convenient, and just turning it on and off. Like the pausing feature is really nice on that. Um, but there's something about the 3DS that I think it feels very accessible in that way.
yeah, I agree with that actually. It is easier to carry around the 3DS than it is the Vita, only because it is because it's a clamshell. You don't feel bad about like just throwing it in a bag, for example. Like with the Vita, I'm always like a little worried, like if the sticks are gonna snap off or something, if I like throw my bag or something by accident.
Right.
Even though like it's not that's not to say like the Vita feels like it's gonna break, because it doesn't. Like I've never like actually pulled it out and felt like, whoa, it's pretty close to breaking there.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, the cheapest part of it is like I threw some grips on it, like a sort of a grip handle, and that's cheap. But the Vita itself, it feels really solid.
Yeah. Do you have anything you don't like about the 3DS?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, I guess I would have to say that owning it now, like I think I like it a little bit more than I was expecting. And it does have, I guess, limitations in terms of uh it only has one analog stick kind of a thing, for instance. Although didn't they release something with Resident Evil where you could like add another one on somehow?
Yeah, it's like a clunky add-on second stick. I don't actually have it. I'm not sure. Like the the LL needs like a extra big one that's even more hard to find, I guess. I mean, I guess I
Oh,
could just go to
yeah.
a store to buy it, but I've never played anything where I felt like it really needs that second stick. I mean, I
Yeah.
think people who are making games for the 3DS realize that not everybody has it, and they usually just, if you have to like move the camera back and forth, usually they just map it to the L and R buttons.
Yeah, and I mean, so that aside, and honestly, I don't know how much that feature comes in handy on the Vita. Um, the screen resolution. I don't know, how do I say it? It's not actually something that bothers me that much when I'm just playing my 3DS. It's more that if there's any games that are multi-platform that are on the 3DS and the Vita, I will buy the Vita version every time.
Oh yeah, me too.
I don't really feel like the 3D necessarily is enough of a selling point, or the dual screens or anything like that, for me to go for the 3DS as like my multi-platform portable.
Yeah, the thing with the 3DS that I hate the most is the 3D. Like I almost never use it. And when I do use it, I almost always turn it off after 10 minutes. It seems like such a waste. Like they put all this effort into making the 3DS, and then like most of the games either don't use the 3D. Like some games I have don't even function with the 3D. Like if you turn on the slider, it doesn't go to 3D. Or some games only partially will be 3D, and then when that 3D comes on, it's awful to look at.
Right. I mean, I guess they even went as far as making a 2DS.
Yeah,
Um,
and the thing is, like, I think that's pretty telling because if you can play all the games on the 2DS with no problem, then it just makes the point that the 3D is completely useless. Like, it's completely, like, just a extra thing that's added on for no apparent reason.
right. It's optional, and it's it seems like it's kind of Chrome that again, like you said, I feel like I turn it on sometimes as a curiosity, and then it never stays on through the whole game. It kind of hurts my eyes a little bit too.
And I know, like, a lot of people don't have that, but man, after like a half hour of playing in 3D, I'm feeling like, man, I gotta turn this 3D off. It's bugging me.
Yeah, the 3DS. Let's move on to the Vita. I mean, I guess I asked you how many games you had for the 3DS. How about the Vita?
I think I have 18 games for the Vita.
Okay.
I have more games for the Vita than I do for the 3DS. How about you?
Um, yeah, I don't have a an exact count off the top of my head, but I'm probably somewhere around like eight or so, maybe 10 at this point, actually.
Okay, so I mean, obviously you've had the Vita longer than the 3DS.
Yes, I have.
So why did you buy the Vita first?
Um, that's a good question, actually. I think in some ways I got the Vita uh because I hadn't really gotten handhelds like at launch before. And I guess kind of like Nintendo isn't really my go-to first party. And I guess at this point Sony is. So, something I wanted to mention actually is that I never really owned a handheld when I was a kid.
Oh, okay. I got a Game Boy like in after like the second month it was out or something.
Oh wow, okay.
So I mean I've always had handhelds. The Game Boy actually I got it came out I think it came out in September and I got it after my birthday in October. So I get it like really soon after it first came out. In I've pretty much always had some kind of handhelds.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I almost somehow I figure that a lot of the really hardcore Nintendo fans in particular probably started with um, a Game Boy. So it's interesting to hear that I mean, maybe Mario on the 3DS isn't your go-to 3DS game.
Yeah, I think it's weird because like when I played games, I played the first console that I owned that was particularly mine was the Nintendo. I mean, we had actually an Atari 5200 at my house before then,
Oh
and
wow.
a 2600 before that, and like those weren't mine though. They were just like family consoles, I guess. But the the Nintendo I got, again, pretty soon after it came out on my birthday, and yeah, that was like my first console. And I think a lot of people who start out with Nintendo kind of have stayed with Nintendo, but for me, pretty early, I jumped ship from Nintendo. Like, I started with the Nintendo, and my very next system, was a TurboGrafx.
Yep. Oh wow.
And man. I love the TurboGrafx. I loved the TurboGrafx back then. It was so good. And then I got a Super Nintendo after that also, but you know even then I still what happened was the TurboGrafx had the Turbo CD, and I had that also. So it was kind of like, I liked the Super Nintendo, but it was like, well, I could do that, play this on the Super Nintendo, and I played a lot of stuff, but I was like, but I also have, Cosmic Fantasy 2 and Ys 1 and 2 on the TurboGrafx, and I think like those had animated cutscenes. That was a they had live CD quality music. It's the kind of thing where like I just loved the TurboGrafx so much that I never had that kind of build up to loving Nintendo so much.
Yeah, no, that's actually really interesting. I feel like it mirrors my experience a little bit in terms of I feel like I was spoiled with CD games because I had a Sega CD, and I kind of went from having um, the Genesis and then getting the add-on for it, and it was really weird at that point then to see Nintendo come out with yet another cartridge-based console. Um, it seemed like it made the choices just really obvious to me of getting something else, Saturn or a PlayStation or something that was CD based. That kind of led me down that path.
Yeah, that's it's weird though, but for the handhelds, like I did start with the Game Boy, and I played essentially Nintendo handhelds forever. I didn't even get a PSP until after I'd come to Japan, so I mean, pretty much all my handheld gaming was Nintendo stuff. But again, I didn't play a lot of Nintendo stuff. Like I can think like my on the Game Boy, like all the stuff that I played was like mostly Capcom stuff.
For me, in a way, my first handheld was a Game Gear, but it was well beyond the time of the Game Gear's active life. So in some ways, maybe similarly to you, I guess your first non Nintendo handheld, um, the PSP was kind of my first real handheld system. So I guess that brings us back to the Vita, where in some ways I almost feel like the PSP and the Vita are my introductions to handheld gaming, and it's almost like I'm getting into it fresh for the first time in the past 6 or 7 years. Um, so I guess that's kind of why I was excited about the Vita, and it seems like just a really nice piece of hardware too, and the I think the culture around handheld gaming right now and its position is very interesting, especially when I realized that I hadn't taken advantage of all of the great games that were coming out on the PSP. I didn't want that to happen with the Vita, um, which I feel like now is positioned, I think, really well to actually have just a whole bunch of great games this gen.
I'd actually agree with that. The Vita is, for me, it is really strong. I mean, obviously not in sales, especially in the US, but the software that's coming out for it, like, as I say, I keep my to buy list for games, and my Vita buy list it's like 3 times the size of my 3DS buy list. There's so much more stuff that I'm interested on the Vita than there is on the 3DS.
What does that look like currently?
My buy list.
Yeah.
Do you want to know about stuff that's out that I haven't bought yet, or just stuff that's upcoming?
Um, I mean, I guess whatever you would like to share. I mean, I'd be curious about either.
It's interesting because I have a lot of stuff that I am pretty interested in. That's just stuff that's been announced and will maybe be out this year or not, and stuff that's already out that I've been. I bought a bunch of stuff recently to kind of lessen the list, but it's still the kind of thing where like I have like I want the Assassin's Creed game on the Vita, but I haven't bought it yet, even though it's been out forever.
Hmm.
But there's a ton of upcoming stuff that you know prevents me from buying the older stuff because I'm like constantly have something to play on the Vita. So every time I finish a game, like I can just stick the next one in because I already have like a kind of Vita backlog going on. But for me, I think the next game that's upcoming that I want to get is Kagero.
Yeah.
That
the new Deception game.
is that what it's called in the U.S.? Is it called Deception or is it called Kagero?
I mean, I think what happened was the Kagado name really kind of caught on, because I think that was sort of the breakthrough, or maybe just the only. It was the first game in the series that I really noticed. I believe that they might have had Deception 1 and 2 here, but Kagado was 3, I believe.
Yeah, it's weird
And
because they're named differently in Japan.
oh, they
So
are.
yeah, they're not. I think like there was Trapped or whatever in the US on the PS2, and
Hmm.
that's like a Kagero game. It's Kagero 2 in Japan.
Oh, interesting. Because
So
I remember that the Kagado here was Deception 3 Kagado, and I think that's the first time that I know of the Japanese name being used on the US release.
is the release in the US gonna be called that Kagero, or is
I
it
believe it
Deception?
is. Well, that's a good question. Now maybe I need to look.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm pretty excited for that. It's an interesting game, like all together, and it's like a strategy RPG that you play without like units. You just play with traps. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
But
I mean
that's also coming out on the PS3, I believe. But I'll be getting it on the Vita.
okay. Now, do you find that you're doing that with more games these days? Is buying the Vita version when there is both a handheld and console version?
Yes, I pretty much if it's gonna come out on the Vita, I'll just buy it on the Vita as opposed to on the console. Um, there's another one like that. Natural Doctrine is coming.
Yeah.
It's kind of a strategy RPG, I guess. But that one's coming out on the PS4, the PS3, and the Vita, and I'm just getting the Vita version.
Oh, that's interesting. No, I've had my eye on that. I was checking out, what's coming out on PlayStation 4. So I feel like for me, between getting it on the Vita and the PS4, since streaming to the Vita is an option from the PS4, that PS4 version is especially attractive. So probably I would go for that version.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think those are actually cross buy, so you might be able to buy it on the PS4 and also get the Vita version as a download.
Okay. Yep.
I'm not. I don't quote me on that though, but I think that's true. Um,
Well, speaking of quotable information, let me just correct myself. So, the first one was Tecmo's Deception: Invitation to Darkness, and Kagado was the second one. It was called Kagado Deception 2.
weird.
Yeah.
And then the third one is Trapped, right?
No, actually, well, Trapped seems like it's the fourth one.
Oh,
Deception 3: Dark Delusion
oh,
was the
okay.
third.
Yeah, yeah. That's weird. No, that's Kagero 2 in Japan.
Okay.
I.
Oh yeah, and Trapped Kagado 2: Dark Illusion.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, welcome to the fun with naming and localizations. I'm surprised they didn't call Conception 2 just Conception here, since it's the first in the series that's come out here.
Yeah. I don't. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff that's gonna be out though. I'm pretty excited for the new Soul Sacrifice, the kind of update to the original. And there's Fantasy Star Nova,
I
and
hadn't heard about that one.
that's like I guess they took Fantasy Star Online 2 assets and just made a like a encapsulated Fantasy Star game for the Vita.
Oh, nice. Kind of like the Phantasy Star portables they had on the PSP.
Yeah, somewhat like that. So Fantasy Star Nova, that'll be a it's a I guess like it's a different option than playing the online version. And I guess Moiro Chronicle I'll probably buy.
Okay.
Um, that's Compile Heart dungeon crawler. I'd assume that you would be all over that.
Yeah, no, I mean I'm giving you kind of a blank stare. I hadn't heard of it.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess it's supposed to be like a sequel to Monster Monpiece or whatever. Um,
Speaking of which, not to go off topic, but did you hear that that's being released here?
Yes, yes, I saw. There's the hordes of angry nerds that the images were being censored or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, or they're taking some out, or I forget what
Yeah,
the final
like
verdict was.
it's the kind of thing where like it seems like the weirdest thing to be angry about because okay, the images aren't there, but they're not taking out the cards, so it doesn't change the gameplay at all. It only
Right.
changes the image on the card. So it's the kind of thing where like, is that something to be angry about? I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, they need to take audience into consideration. I mean, if you're talking about the people that are going to import this game from Japan, um, that's one thing. They're going to get the original game, but I mean, I wouldn't expect them to release something like that without at least considering the audience that they're releasing it to, and I can't really hold it against them to.
Yeah, well, I think like actually there's some European laws that prevent like sales of kind of sexualized image of children, not like of depictions of children, not actual children, obviously.
Right,
And
right.
that's illegal everywhere. But the thing with that is like I guess in maybe I think the UK has a law that like drawings of people who are underage are illegal. So what happens is they probably have to edit those cards for the European market.
Right, right. So I mean, and some of that might be bleeding over, into the US too. I mean, it's weird. Um, every place has its own sort of laws. I mean, I heard recently too in the news it was the patch for League of Legends, I guess, was getting blocked by certain ISPs in like Europe or the UK because of like filters that they had put on for stuff like that, and it was just matching a string of characters that happened to exist in the file and causing a lot of problems.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, the UK has like that weird anti-pornography law recently, so
Yeah, I hadn't heard.
that kind of it has to do with that. Like I guess that string of characters like spelled sex at some point, and that was enough to get the patch blocked.
Okay, okay, yep.
That's the
So,
anything. Well, yeah, we were talking about Moero Chronicle, which is I guess it's an actual first-person dungeon crawler, but it uses the same type of monster girls as in Monster Mom Piece. So there's it's all your enemies are monster girls, I guess. Um, so I've talked about this a little bit in probably in one of my Dark Demon Souls videos or whatever. But the thing with that is that it's the kind of game that I feel torn on buying because like I'm not like a huge fan of the art style. Like I don't really like that kind of like moe kind of anime art that you like.
right, right.
And
That's not like the selling point for you.
yeah, it's the kind of thing where like I I'm not a fan of it, so I don't really think of it as like a selling point. But because it's a first person dungeon crawler and it's also made by Compile Heart, who I know can make a good first person dungeon crawler, it
Hmm.
makes me want to buy it. But then again, I'm conflicted in the sense that I kind of don't want the the pervy moe game. I don't want the perv elements, is what I'm saying.
Right, right. You don't need to buy the Famitsu DX version of Moeru Chronicle.
Yeah, you you on the other hand, it seems like something you might buy.
Yeah, no, I definitely. I mean, I feel like maybe it was the turn of the year or something. I really decided to step up my game, and I'm like, I'm gonna really go after these new games that are coming out, Japanese games for the Vita and the PS4 and stuff like that, and really kind of just double down on that. So um, the thing is, I don't have to look very far, and already I'm being inundated. I think my next purchase along those lines is probably going to be Superhero and Chronicle. um, is the one I'm definitely looking forward to.
What is that?
So that's another one, Namco Bandai, um, kind of in the line of the Super, like Robot Tyson or the Queen's Blade games,
Okay.
but it's another like big crossover series. So you have characters from, I'm probably just going to list the only ones that I know because I don't know a lot of them, but stuff like DigiCarrot, what is it? Zero Note Skyma. I'm actually drawing a blank on a lot of the other ones, but it's a lot of like anime series. So like anime and manga and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to that because I know that the battle system is really top notch. Really like the battle system in those games, and just the other stuff is kind of icing on the cake.
Have you played both of those? Like, have you played like Princess Blade and not Princess Blade? What are the Queen's Blade and Queen's Gate or whatever? Both of those types. I mean, the
I
one
have.
one is the one is a strategy RPG and the other is not. I guess.
No, they're both actually the same style of gameplay.
Oh, are they?
Yep. The main thing is that one is based on the strictly the Queen's Blade like battle books that you can buy, and the other one is based on the Queen's Gate. As far as I know, same thing. It's a series of battle books, but when they did Queen's Gate, they it's a crossover thing. So they made battle books that used characters from like other established series. So you'd have like Mai from King of Fighters, and that sort of brought her into the Queen's Blade universe
Okay.
via via Queen's Gate. And so then when they made this PSP game, they used the Queen's Gate characters. So you had a lot of characters from like all kinds of different Capcom series and stuff like that.
Interesting. I always see those games, and for the same reason I think about Moedro Chronicles. I think about like I don't really want to buy it, but I kind of want to buy it.
Uh,
It's I'm always like I've been trying to break out of the not buying games by the way they look. In like essentially, like I'm not saying like it's a like I don't really care about graphics so much as I care about the art style.
uh-huh.
So like I don't care if something looks, even like people are always saying, "Oh, that looks like a PS2 game." Like I don't care. You know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I played a like Deadly Premonition, for example. Looks awful, but that's such a fun game that it was just kind of like, oh well, who cares? But the thing with the art style is that you know you have to look at it the whole time, and it's the kind of thing if you're not really enjoying it, like Criminal Girls is another one of those things I know you have. It's the
Uh-huh.
kind of thing where like it's not a terrible game at all, but like I feel creepy playing it.
Uh-huh.
So it's the kind of thing where like I'm not sure if I'm going to go back and finish it. Oh, and it's not a bad game at all. I just feel like, man, do I have to do this spanking mini game?
Right. Right, yeah, and I mean I'm playing that right now. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's really cool. I mean
Yeah,
I'm
I
I'm
mean, if you enjoy the art style, it would probably be fun. But I
yeah,
always feel like, man, I don't want to bring this with me on the train. That
right,
kind of
right.
thing,
You
like it's
you,
just
you pretty much can't. I mean you shouldn't at least. I'm sure somebody does, um but even I wouldn't go that far. Uh, but yeah, I mean and I guess it's one of those things where because it can work the other way, I think too, where like sometimes I'll see something where I'm like, "Oh, that looks cute." And I'll watch it and I'll be like, actually, that was more creepy than I wanted. So, so, I guess the door can swing. It can swing both ways.
yeah. I think I'm on the opposite end of you because I'm um more creepy is like too creepy is not something that can happen for me.
Right.
Whereas I think like too cute is something that can happen.
Yep. Yep.
That's like one of the one of my favorite parts about Soul Sacrifice, for example, is how like creepy everything is. All the
Uh,
all the monsters are like really horrific and weird.
yeah. No. I mean, I remember you saying that, and that has a really interesting art style too. But that's one of those things where I wonder. I'm like, if it had I guess like maybe I was saying before, where's the like the made uh third person dungeon crawler or something like that. Like, I wonder if the art style had been different for Soul Sacrifice if I would have leaped into that a little more than I did.
If it would have been um, groups of maids fighting giant vacuum cleaners or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like already I'm like I'm down with that.
I'm getting you excited about a game that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
It's the that would. I'm sure somebody should actually make that. It seems like there would be a market.
it
Your
does.
Moe monster hunting game.
Yeah.
But how about you? Anything you're excited for upcoming on the Vita besides was that Princess game on the Vita?
Uh, uh, Superhero Hero
Yeah,
and Chronicle?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a Vita game. So there is, and I haven't like plotted things out that much, but certainly some things that are coming out here. Danganronpa, um, Demon's Gaze, I've pre-ordered, and actually just today, literally, I got Utakumi Goshichigo, um, which I only had a second to check out. But it seems fun. It's one of those things where I think because I enjoyed Hatsune Miku Project Diva F so much, I'm like, another Vocaloid rhythm game is not something that I will, avoid right now. So,
So have you seen that other Vocaloid game for the Vita they announced recently? Um, IA something.
yes, I did actually. Yeah. Yeah, Ia. Ia is another Vocaloid. I've only heard a few songs with her just because some of the groups that I follow, one of them used her uh, for a song, but I've actually looked her up specifically on YouTube because I'm like, what does she sound like? And it's nice. So I'm really happy that some of these other companies making Vocaloids aside from Krypton are actually getting games made of them because I'm curious to hear more of their songs.
Yeah, I guess that game has a lot of different Vocaloids in it,
Oh, okay.
and it
So
has a lot
it's
of
not just
songs
Ia.
too. I guess it has about 70 songs or something.
Oh, wow.
I heard it
Wow.
saying that it had a ton of songs. I didn't really read about it. I'm not incredibly interested, but I did look into it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely very interested in that. Without a doubt.
Anything else you have in mind upcoming? Were you gonna get Conception 2?
I am. Yeah, definitely. That's coming up in I think April 15th for us. Um, so that's definitely on my list to pre-order. And honestly, I'm kind of wanting to go back and maybe pick up a couple of Vita games that I've missed out on. Um, I'm in a little bit more of a dilemma than you are though, because some of these are cross-platform. For instance, Superhero and Chronicle is on the PS3 as well. But for that one, I actually kind of want to get it on the Vita because the other games I played on PSP, so I feel like it's a portable series. Um, whereas Dream Club, they I watched this ridiculous trailer for One Chanbara, like Z, Zedo or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's on the 360, right?
it is, yeah, but they actually released it on the PS3 recently, and they pulled a character from Dream Club, which I know has been like this, you know, series that apparently has been pretty successful for D3.
Have you
Um,
played a Dream Club game?
no, no, I have not.
I have played a Dream Club game.
You have?
I have.
Okay.
Um, a friend of mine bought it for me, like as a joke, because
Okay.
well, like what happened was it's the same guy who sends me games, but like what happened was, I made the mistake of telling him that when he sends me games, I like make a point to play them because he went through the trouble of sending them, so the least I can do is actually play the games.
Sure.
So anything he sends, I told him anything he sent, I'll play. So he like tried to find the game that I would enjoy the least, and so he sent me Dream Club, the original Dream Club on the 360, and I did play through it entirely with one of the characters,
Okay. Yep.
and it's annoying. That's like, I guess like I don't know. It's the kind of thing like if you were into that kind of thing, it would probably be fun.
Uh-huh.
And it's got lots of goofy stuff like feeding the girls with items. I guess like in Dream Club 2, it's like ridiculous. Like you're feeding them like spraying cream on them or feeding them bananas and stuff. It's like totally goofy.
Right.
And
Like really. Yeah.
yeah, in this one though, you're not in the first one that I played. You're not feeding them quite so phallic materials. Like you're feeding them like pokey or something. Like it's the kind of thing where like it's more innocent.
Right.
And it's just you're just kind of going to the hostess club and having the girls dance, or you're talking to them about their problems or whatever. It's you know all right. I it was only fun for me to play actually because I was playing with somebody else in the room,
Okay.
and I didn't like the character so much, but I picked the character that they hated the most. So it was like it was at least a little fun in that aspect. But like,
So it sounds like as kind of a spectator sport that you can, you know,
yeah, it was fun to play with another person around. Whereas if I were playing it by myself, I would just be really bored of it really quickly, I think.
yeah.
But it is kind of like a dating sim in the sense that I mean it's not like you're going out on dates, but like you are just going to the club to essentially meet the girl and eventually try to get the ending where you end up with her or whatever. And
Right. I mean,
there's a different ending for each girl and a bad ending, I guess.
yeah. I mean, and just from that, like it makes me curious at least. I mean, I guess if the what is it, sort of the cabaret mode in um like Yakuza 4. Um, I have to admit, it's like I kind of did that, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like it wasn't really my thing, but
Oh yeah, I didn't do
I
I in Yakuza. I don't ever. Well, I wouldn't say ever, but like sometimes I go through those. But like in Yakuza 5, for example, I don't think I think I only did it the one time that I was required to, and then I just never went back.
yeah, similar kind of thing for me, but yeah, I mean, I could see something like that has more to it being pretty interesting. So I don't know. I'd like to just take your advice and kind of be like, okay, maybe I'll dodge a bullet. And I mean, I guess like so if I might be inclined to like that more than you, what would your recommendation be on that? Like give it a try
For
or
for you,
stay away.
for
Yeah.
you, buy it. It
Okay.
seems like something you would like, actually. It seems, the characters are all like kind of tropey anime characters, I guess. And you have conversations with them. You get to know about them, and like sometimes they'll call over other girls, so you have like three-way conversations, and there's lots of stuff you can do. I mean, it's not. It's just the thing is it's totally a character based game. If you don't enjoy that kind of like character,
Hmm.
then it's not going to be a fun game for you. But I think you do enjoy that type of character, so it's probably something you would enjoy.
Yeah. No, it probably will be. And I'm going to talk more about Criminal Girls, but that's the thing too is as I'm getting more in further into it, um it's becoming really interesting. It might be one of those things if it were actually in English, like maybe I would just be like, wow, this is just trite and stupid. But I mean, these girls have gone to hell. So of course, um you kind of apparently they represent like sort of the cardinal sins, and you start getting these backstories to them about like how like why they went to hell and sort of like what their crime is, and they're sort of going through this catharsis where like you make a team and you're kind of all working together and everybody um starts becoming better people, and I'm probably playing it up a little bit more like than it deserves. But I started to become kind of like vested in it. It's really cute. I kind of like it.
No, I don't. I think like that is actually pretty interesting as a part of that game. I haven't gone through the entirety of it though, but it is. I did like find that I was enjoying it a little bit, but of course, like the creepiness of it, the creepy factor, kind of drives me away. And I
Right,
and I
right.
totally bought it because of the weird ass concepts too. I knew it was going to be like kind of creepy in in like a creepy spanking mini game kind of way, but um, I think like the game itself is actually pretty fun. I like the battle system for it, the kind of weird like four corners thing that's going on.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting. Like you can only choose one attack per turn, but each of the girls kind of gets their own like skill or attack that comes up. It's intriguing
Yeah,
and fun to
it's
play.
interesting, but I doubt I'll finish it. I might eventually, but it's the kind of thing where like it's the kind of thing that I can only play at home.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll knock on wood. Maybe they'll release another one that's I don't know. It's like crazy demons or I don't know. Like, do you get into like mecha stuff at all or?
Not really. Um, it's weird because recently I've been buying a ton of stuff from software.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
and they've made a ton of games that are like these kind of creepy, like super hard first person games. They're not like dungeon crawler. Some of them are dungeon crawlers, but they're not like tile based dungeon crawlers. They're like free movement, 3D based first person dungeon crawlers, I guess. But like Kingsfield,
Yeah.
and they have a bunch of stuff like that. Like Shadow Tower, and then there's like Echo Knight and stuff like that. But they also
Hmm.
make Armored Core.
Frame Gride and
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where like I like the stuff that From Software makes, but like I can't bring myself to buy Armored Core only because I'm so not interested in mechs.
right. Oh,
And
that's interesting. Yeah. And I mean, I'm probably the same way that you are sort of with the cute stuff where it's like I'm I wouldn't go to a game for the mechs, but I would go to a good game that had mechs in it. Um and it wouldn't keep me away.
oh yeah, well I mean, I'm not against mechs so much as I am like not for them either.
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna stop. I'm not gonna not buy a new um, damn it, what is that game with the strategy RPG with the mechs Front Mission?
Yep.
I wouldn't buy like not buy a new Front Mission strategy RPG if they put one out, but I'm not gonna buy Front Mission Evolved because it's not the type of game I want to play.
Right, right. You're not interested in what was it Gundam
Yeah, whatever Gundam anything. I always like I play those games that are the crossover between Kamen Rider and Ultraman and Gundam, and I always like don't want to use the Gundam characters. Just want to like add more Kamen Riders or whatever.
right.
It's the kind of thing where like the Gundams are always my least favorite.
Now, so how, I guess, how about you for like any more upcoming Vita stuff?
I think the stuff I'm most excited for is stuff that doesn't have a solid. I wouldn't say that. Well, most of it doesn't have a solid release date. But the game I'm most excited for should be out sometime in the summer, which is like Ore no Shikabane o Koete Yuke 2, which is, I guess they've been translating that as Over My Dead Body.
Okay.
And that game is there's a PSP version that I talked about on my channel somewhere.
Right. Is it a beat 'em up?
It's not, it's a RPG,
Okay.
but it looks like Japanese woodcuts or like
Oh, okay.
woodcut printing. So
Yep.
it looks really cool, but the gimmick is that you have this RPG party that's built on your family, your family is cursed to like be born and live their entire life in 2 years. So they hyper age. So
Okay.
like, they're born and then like 3 months later they're old enough to be in your party and fighting. And
I hope
like,
that happens in Conception also.
no, in
Or is this going to
conception
be a
they're
long
born and
game?
they can fight immediately.
Oh wow. Okay.
But in this game, your family members like have children with gods, and to, as you get strong, as you go through the generations, each generation gets stronger and stronger, so you can start progressing farther into the levels. It's done really well in that it's open. You can choose where you want to go from the beginning, obviously,
Okay.
but you have a time limit. So like, what happens is the first time you go into a stage, like you almost never reach the boss because you run out of time. You just don't know where to go. So if you're running around trying to figure out the stage, you'll run out of time and you'll be sent back and the month is over. And like what happens is you have to get more powerful and faster. So like you can start running through the stages faster to get to the bosses, and you'll find that like you'll have like by the end of the game you're fast enough to run through the stage and then like get to the first boss, to the second boss, and to the final boss of the stage. But in the first time you go in, you probably won't aren't even fast enough to get to the first boss. So it's actually balanced in a different way than a normal RPG is. Like you can go to any stage from the beginning, except like you probably aren't fast enough to get through it. So you're
Yeah.
kind of blocked off from the more powerful stuff that you couldn't fight anyway by by your speed, which is it's an interesting way that the game is put together. And the system of building your party is like pretty awesome too. There's like 8 different classes and you can kind of put them in however you like and fight however you like. And the party constantly changes because your characters die of old age after after like sometimes less than 2 years. A year and a half is usually the average.
That's really interesting. I mean, it has to be a little bit frustrating. I remember playing Monster Rancher 3, which I dearly loved, and but it was sad because the monsters were sort of the same way. Like you'd fight in a set time frame, and eventually your monsters would get old and die, and you could like take their hearts and feed them to the to the next monster to give them like some of their skills and stuff. But it's an interesting mechanic. I mean, it sounds pretty fascinating, like a collection of unique gameplay elements.
Yeah, it's weird because like in that game you have your main character who dies immediately, and then the name of that main character, the name you give that character, is counted as like a title. So that the head of the family for the upcoming after that character dies, like the next person who is decided as the head of the family gains that name. So like the name is always the same for the main character of the party.
Huh.
It's pretty
Now,
interesting.
is it always the same gender?
No,
Okay.
it's different every time. It's just based on like who. I mean, you technically, I guess you could make it the same gender every time because you hand select whoever's the next person.
Okay.
Like obviously, if you have two people and one is like 1 year and 6 months old and the next person below him is 1 month 5 months old, you don't want to select the 1 month five for the next leader because he's going to die really soon anyway.
Hmm.
So I always end up selecting a really young person as the next leader so they can you know kind of gain throughout the party as like as everybody else grows, they'll grow also, and then by the time they die, they'll be the most powerful person. It's a pretty interesting system altogether, and unlike it was originally a PS1 game that they remastered for the PSP, and then I was pretty excited to see that they were actually going to release a new one on the Vita, and I guess that's coming out in the summer. So that one's I'm really excited for. Um, there's also I'll probably actually get the Persona game that's going to come out, the dancing one.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So that one is actually I don't if you play the Persona games, like the music in those games just gets, even if you like it or not, it just gets ingrained in your head, like you hear it so much.
Hmm.
So since it's just like Persona music, essentially, a music rhythm game with Persona music, I can handle that. I'll play that.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the Theater Rhythm game there, the Final Fantasy one. I haven't actually played that, but I can see that working. I mean, the Final Fantasy games traditionally have had good music, and it seems like that would work out.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. It's like just I've heard the Persona music so much. You play those games for like 100 hours each or whatever. You just hear that same music over and over. It's very familiar.
Now, are you? I forget if we talked about this, but are you interested in the Final Fantasy remake?
Oh, the Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
No, I I probably won't get it. I've seen it around, like it's been out for a couple weeks, but I haven't really found myself interested in it enough to get it. Like I never played X2 actually, but the 10 I played, and I don't know. I'm not really a fan. Not that I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it.
Hmm.
And unlike you, I really didn't like Final Fantasy 12.
Hmm.
So it's the kind of thing where like after that I didn't even play 13 because I was like after playing 10 and then 12 and then it felt like, oh, I just don't want to play Final Fantasy anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't blame you. Like, I'd like to say, 13 was amazing and you should play it, but if you said you're kind of interested in playing 15, I don't think you're missing much by skipping, the whole like trilogy. Um, I'm even a little on the fence about Lightning Returns, but I think I'm gonna get it just because I really did enjoy just the battle system and just kind of making my way through 13 so much that I have a feeling that like I will find something to like in Lightning Returns.
Did you play 13 too?
You know, it's kind of a sad story about that game because I started it and I got about 6 hours in. And one of the things that I loved about 13 is that I could take my save, I could go to my friends' houses and I could play the game there, and then I could just bring the save with me on a USB stick and keep playing it at home. I actually sold at least one copy of the game by doing that. That one of my friends, after he saw me play it, he's like, I need to go buy this game right now. Um, and so when I got 13.2, I was like, okay, I did the exact same thing. In fact, Sony had just rolled out the cloud saves for PlayStation Plus, which I was absolutely loving at the time. So I saved to the cloud. I went to my friend's place and I tried to play the game and it started me from the beginning. So I was like, oh, well, that sucks. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just have to keep playing it from home. So I came home and it started me from the beginning again.
Oh, weird. If this cloud save didn't work, is that what happened?
Yeah, well, I mean, the save worked, but the game it seemed like was built. I don't know if it was an anti-piracy thing or something like that. It seemed like it was built so that you couldn't start from a save that had been transferred or something like I'm still not sure exactly what the issue was, but I emailed their support and they basically just emailed me back and they're like, "Yeah, we're not obligated to, provide to basically our game is not obligated to function with Sony's, feature that they rolled out." And I was like, okay, well then I'm not obligated to play your game. So so that so I mean, and it's not so much that I don't want to play it. I haven't gotten up the nerve to go back and play it after that. I'm sure when that, wears off, I'll
Lightning Returns is directly connected to it in
Mhm.
some way. I don't really know, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just wondering if you could play it without playing 13.2 and still understand what's happening.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I mean, I just did that video where I was like, what do you do about series? You know? And I think if anything, that at least has helped cement in me a feeling that I don't think I ever want to not play a game because I haven't played other games in a series. Um, maybe that's kind of a broad generalization, but that that I like, unless something is like extremely serialized, it seems like more and more companies are making their games to attract new players, to be accessible to more people, and really to be playable on their own. I don't feel like I would be missing, that much. And honestly, the story is nonsensical enough in those games that it it probably doesn't matter.
So, know what we never talked about?
Oh, what's that?
3DS games we were looking forward to.
Oh, that's a good point. Um, I mean, maybe if I can go first, it's a short list because Bravely Default is the only one I can think of off the
Really?
top of my head.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, I guess that makes sense.
I mean, I'm also like cut out from importing any games for it unless I import a system. So there's kind of that's an extra limiter on
Yeah, that's like also another bad point about the 3DS is the region locking. It's weird. I always thought that was weird when they started region locking the 3DS because the DS isn't region locked and neither is the Game Boy Advance or the Game Boy.
Mhm.
So it's weird that they started on the 3DS. Like why change it up now?
I wonder if like the what was it, the
R4
R2
cards or
or R4, yeah, whatever. If that whole fiasco had anything to do with that, or I don't know if it makes a difference, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't actually know the reasoning, but it seems strange that all of a sudden that they've changed it up after never having region lock on their system before.
yeah,
Well, I mean their handheld system, all their consoles have been region locked.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The 3DS is also not. I don't have a lot I'm looking forward to really. Um, there's of course Persona Q will be out in a couple months here. I don't. That's another kind of first person dungeon crawler, so of course I'll be getting it. Um, and then the rest of the stuff, like I have the new Game Center CX game.
Okay.
Um, I think that comes. I don't know when I'm going to get it though. I'm not going to get it right when it comes out, only because it comes out in like the end of February, beginning of March area where like everything is coming out.
Hmm.
So it's the kind of thing where like I'll just wait for it to get cheaper, I guess, because I'm not going to have the time to play it.
Now, I feel ignorant. I'm racking my brain here. I I know Game Center. I know I've heard about Game Center CX, and I'm pretty sure we've talked about it before. But what kind of game is it? Like a compilation or?
Game Center CX is like it's kind of like uh, a bunch of smaller games that are done in the kind of Nintendo style, Famicom style, I guess. So you'll have like
Okay.
a Famicom style RPG or a Famicom style shooter or a Famicom style platformer.
Oh wow, but it's, they're developed now,
Yeah, they're
basically.
developed new. They're not like they're basically like they'll take games from the Famicom era and give them like a different theme or a different kind of way to play them and make it's kind of like a compilation of a bunch of those.
That sounds really cool, actually.
Yeah, that game actually, the first one has a US release. The second one doesn't, but the third one is looking pretty good. It's pretty interesting in that game because like it's all done on one screen, but it's on the DS, and like below on the below screen, there's like a little kid with a controller, like he's playing, sitting in a living room playing on a small TV or something.
That's awesome.
It's a nice little touch in there, but that 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 series is good, but it's not something I feel like I have to have right away, but it is something I want. And the only other game I can think of is I guess take the A Train 3D. That's
Okay.
a Rashadeiko, which is like it's a hardcore train simulator.
Okay.
It's not like a train simulator so much as it's like a I mean, there's train parts, but it's like a station simulator almost. Train stations.
Okay, so as opposed to what was it the Densha de Go, where you're really piloting, you're driving the train. So I mean, sounds
I,
like more of a simulation game.
yeah, it's a simulation. Not it's not like a train driving city simulation based around the trains, like placing stations and stuff in good locations and
Kind of along the same lines as like a Sim City sort of train simulation.
that kind of thing.
I mean, it's probably good to kind of to start to wrap up, but I did have one thing that I wanted to say in particular about the Vita.
Okay.
Um, so I was at my friend's place, and one of my other friends had gotten a PlayStation 4, and he has a Vita. So we were over there, and he was like, let me show you, what he was playing on his PlayStation 4." And I didn't realize this, but the PlayStation 4 streaming to the Vita can actually happen over the internet.
Oh yeah, I've seen people do that online where there'll be like, here's a video of me playing my PS4 on the Vita in a cafe or something.
Right, yeah. And I mean, so it was just really incredible to see. I mean, here he's playing essentially like Assassin's Creed 4 um on his Vita, like completely in a different location. And it brought up some really interesting things about kind of physical games versus download games, because he's like, this is great. I could actually be, traveling to my in-laws or something. I can have my PS Vita. I can be playing my PlayStation 4. But the thing I can't do is change a disc at home. So it just adds a really interesting another layer to that. I guess that tension that we're having between like physical games and download games. It seemed to me like I still feel like the physical version has a lot more value to it. Um, but when you're faced with something like, I mean, even just on my Vita, just changing out the cards, sometimes I'm like, it almost feels a little old. Like I feel like I should just be able to be pulling my games up in a list. And when I realize that I can do that if I purchase them digitally, it's I wouldn't say my opinion is shifting over, but there's more compelling reasons, I think, to kind of look at downloadable games a little differently for me with these portables.
So, Matt, what have you been playing recently?
Well, I have been playing Dragon's Dogma, as you may know, and it's one of those things that my friend had started playing it. It was free on PlayStation Plus, and I really got sucked into it. Um, I think I've actually kind of finally put it down for now, because I realized that I'm pretty much on the last story quest. So when I got to the point where I'm like, well, I kind of had to look up online to say, okay, where am I in the story? Am I high enough level to sort of take on the end part? Um, it really brought home to me sort of all of my criticisms that I've had towards the game, um, just in kind of how that whole quest structure is made, and it made me feel like I've kind of probably gotten out of it what I'm gonna get right now. But it was a really like a pretty amazing 3 weeks of playing that game. When I wasn't frustrated with it, it was really pretty cool. Um, so definitely having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I should probably play that more. I really um I I think like what happened was I because I went directly to the Bitter Black Isle or whatever.
Uh-huh.
It was like ridiculously challenging, and I knew it was going to be because that it's supposed to be like you're supposed to be like level 30 to 40 or something when you go there, and I'm like level 8, and every time I kill an enemy, I like gain 2 levels or something. It's like the kind of thing where like my pawns die every battle, and
Yep. I
I'm
mean, it's impressive if it's skill based enough that you can even make that work a little bit.
yeah. There's some you can kind of get through a bit of it, and then there's some points where like something spawns that like wrecks you in one shot. And it's just like, hi, Black Knight. Oh, dead.
Yep.
That kind of
I would have to
happens.
imagine any group of bandits with more than, one archer would pretty much be instant death.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there isn't any in the areas that I had been in so far. In that in there, there weren't any archers. There were just like mummies and things that would show like get up off the ground and start attacking.
Nice.
But I didn't get really far, and I was I'd only played it for like a couple hours, and then I started playing something else and haven't gone back yet.
Yep.
But I played a little bit into the story after that. Also, went back from the island and played to the point where like you take the Hydra's head to the main city or whatever.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yep.
So I played up until there. So I think I was like by the end I was like level 14 or something.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a good little introduction to the game, but I mean, I remember that was still the part of the game where I'm like, I don't get this game at all. It's just trying to wrap my head around what am I supposed to be doing at this moment. Um, but yeah, I mean, I found like just the whole idea of the pawns, the leveling system, basically changing job classes and um, increasing the enhancements on your armor and things like that. A lot of things that were really well done in that game, and especially the dungeon exploring too. I found I wish there were. Maybe I should play Bitter Black Isle because I think what that game needed was more content and less annoying quests.
Yeah, maybe you should because it seems like it's an entirely dungeon crawling based island, I guess. You seem to be go you have to unlock a bunch of doors to find other areas to unlock more doors to save something. I don't remember what the story was. I forgot. But I liked Bitter Black Isle because it seemed like the setup of it was really nice. Like like you were saying, if you climb cliffs and things, you can sometimes find little troves of treasure or whatever. You can like do a bit of exploring, and then you can go into these kind of dark dungeon type places and fight mummies and knights and things.
Yeah, no, I found that to be very compelling. Um, but yeah, I mean, in addition to that, I've really played quite a lot of Criminal Girls. I think there's only like 5 or 6 levels to it, and I'm like on the second to the last level. Um, so I'm having a lot of fun with that. But also, I think my goal is really to leave no Vita game unplayed. So I really want to just dive into my Vita library. I've already played some of Sorcery Saga. Um, I've got Valhalla Knights 3 and Persona 4 Golden, which I really want to play. They're pretty much next on my list. Um, and Utakumi, which seems like a cool game so far. I mean, I really don't even want to say anything because I've literally played an hour of it. Um, but it's fun so far.
Is it music? Is it just a music rhythm game, or are you actually like building a group, a idol group or whatever?
So far it is just a music rhythm game. And maybe I shouldn't say so far. I'm pretty positive that that's all that it is. Um, I would say what sets it apart. I mean, there's definitely the unlocking of stuff, which I think is probably pretty normal at this point. So you unlock outfits, you unlock venues, um, but it has this whole lyrics portion. Um, and it's pretty intense. Like what you need to do is basically you'll tap out some rhythm stuff and then you'll have multiple words that come up and they all go in the lyrics, but you have to put them in the right order. So like at first you just end up with like 2 words, but I've had it up to like 3, sort of like a word and a particle and a word. Um, so you touch those to put them in the right order, and then you tap out the rhythm of them singing the words that you just entered in.
Oh, okay.
So it's interesting. You have to be quite fast to do it. The best strategy I've found so far really is just to read the words that you pick, and if they don't make sense in the order that they're already in, to enter them in the reverse order. And I've been marginally successful with that. Um, and there are also little like story bits, and I guess there's like an anime series that's sort of like short. It might be a short webisode style episodes that they're kind of coming out with simultaneously as the with the release of the game.
Okay, I see that got released pretty recently, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was just like a couple days ago.
Okay, I saw it at the store yesterday, but I didn't realize that it was like a last week release or whatever.
But
So Anything else you've been playing?
Um, that's about it. I've been trying out a couple things on my PlayStation 3, just um not wanting to have PlayStation 3 games on my shelf that I haven't actually physically put into the system and tried. I've tried out a couple things like that. Nothing of a lot of note, I suppose, except like I spent a few minutes with Conan, which was interesting.
Oh, okay. I
Um,
I have actually played that game. Um,
okay, like played like a significant amount,
no,
or
yeah, I beat it. I went through the whole game.
okay.
I'm just like I actually am a pretty big fan of Robert E. Howard, so I've actually read all of his Conan stories.
Oh, nice. I really like his writing style. I've only just, kind of glanced at the first chapter of one of them, but I really enjoy the style that I saw.
Yeah, those the Conan stories are really good, but that game doesn't quite follow the Howard Conan. It kind of branches off into the goofier Conan that came later.
Like the Arnold Conan the Destroyer type of Conan.
Yeah, there's lots of like sexy slave girls like thanking you for saving them or whatever. That happens a lot. Um,
Right, right.
it's weird because the original Conan stories are all like really dark. They're
Hmm.
apparent, I guess, like Robert Howard made the Conan universe is the same as the Cthulhu universe.
Oh, okay.
So like sometimes there's like a bit of a crossover.
Oh, interesting.
So it's dark. I mean, everything is like when there's evil wizards, they're evil wizards. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah. If they're old gods, like,
yeah, there's a lot
yeah.
of that. And
Huh.
what happens is like the game doesn't quite capture that kind of feeling, even though it does take elements from some of those stories into the game itself.
Hmm.
Um, it's not exactly the same tone as the original ones. It's more towards the later non-Howard Conan stories, which is it's not a bad game actually. It's not a great game, but it's pretty good for what it is, and it could have been better in terms of the character of Conan, but beyond that, I think it's not a bad game, and it's really cheap, so like it's probably worth like the $5 you spent on it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm looking forward to playing some more. But how about you?
Let's see. I just recently finished Conception 2. Um, I did talk about that a bit already on my channel, but Conception 2, yeah, it's all right. It's better than the first one, but maybe only marginally. I think that actually you'll probably enjoy it more than I did.
Yeah, I was wondering about that a little bit because if I remember, some of your criticisms were around, maybe just the ease of play and the kind of the style, and those seemed like things that I might be, have slightly different standards on.
Yeah, I think it it was too easy. I think that was one of my major complaints. Where like usually when you get to a boss battle, you kind of have that feeling like you accomplish something when you win. But
Hmm.
there was, like I said, when I was talking about it, there were points where I would like one shotted the bosses. Like I did like one move and killed everything on the screen.
Yeah. I mean,
And
at that point, I would feel like I'd power leveled too much. I mean, at that point, did you then just proceed through the story and not worry about trying to, um, sort of tweak out your party or
yeah, I didn't grind at all. The only time like I did anything that resembled grinding when I was trying to do some side quests where I was trying to get rare drops. Like you just have to. It's not like I'm grinding for levels. I'm just trying to get the rare drops, so you have to fight the
right?
same
Yeah,
thing
it's
a million
just
times. But beyond that, like there was like I literally ran through the final dungeon without fighting anything, and I was still high enough level to just utterly destroy the boss.
huh. Yeah. Well, I mean that does sound disappointing.
Yeah,
I would be disappointed in that.
I think like it could have something to do with the way I made my party though, which is something different. You know what I mean? Like if you had trouble making parties in a way that were really effective,
Hmm.
it could actually make the game more challenging. Except like when I just kind of figured out these characters have these kind of things they can do, and that seems awesome. So I'll just make character parties based around those characters. So what happened was like, I have these characters who do massive damage attacks essentially, and everything would die really quickly. Like almost every boss I could beat in two rounds essentially, except the final boss took a little bit longer, but it wasn't any more difficult. It was just he had more health essentially.
Hmm.
So that was the kind of thing where like I never felt like this is hard, or even felt like this is a challenge. So that was like one of my main complaints, and the tropey characters.
Right.
But I
Right.
think I think you that's the kind of thing you actually enjoy. So like I said, like what I think I said it in the review, like my complaints about the game are things that probably could be seen as benefits to other people. So
Right.
it's the kind of thing where I don't really feel that it's not a bad game at all, but my complaints are kind of personal complaints. They're not like anything to do with the actual like overall game itself.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely really interested in checking that one out. I mean, I kind of feel like it's good that it's not coming out here until April, um, because that gives me a little bit of time to play, the flood of games that are coming out between then and now.
Okay, that's actually a good point. I think like it's weird that there's so many games coming out in the next couple months that and the PlayStation 4 also,
Yep.
for me at least. I mean, for you've had it for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
But beyond that, I've been playing. Oh, I played Simeone a bit. Uh, that's
Okay.
that's on the V. Was that a physical release in the U.S. or was it a download only?
I mean, I'm not familiar with it, so I guess I'm not sure.
It's like that game where you're an Oni and you have to draw with ink on the screen to.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That might have been a download only.
Okay.
I believe that it was actually because I seem to remember that Japan had the physical release of that, and I think it was kind of an early download title for the Vita. Is that right?
Yeah, it was probably a launch title, I'd guess. I mean, that game it's really simple and short, so I could
Hmm.
understand why it would be download only. Um, you know, Originally the the hard the hard copy of it is pretty expensive, so I didn't buy it. But recently it was like on sale for $5 or something. I thought, well, if I downloaded it, it would be more expensive than that. So I just bought the physical copy and played it for a little bit, a couple hours maybe. Maybe not even that, but it's like a game you can beat in 20 minutes. So you just run through the stages, and then like depending on how you do in the stages, it'll branch off to a different level. So there's a lot of replayability, even though like it only takes 20 minutes to beat.
Okay, that was my first question because games like that can actually be really great. Like a short game that you can play over and over again and get a lot out of it each time. I think has some. Sorry,
Drawing a blank.
drawing a blank. Um, it has charms that longer games that you only play once don't have.
Yeah, I that's what I feel about it. Like it's really short, and it's not. Well, I guess it's a little difficult to if you're not good at platforming and quickly drawing with your finger on the screen, and I'm not really good at it. I mean, it's not really the kind of game that I want to play. I just thought it was like kind of looked like an interesting concept, so picked it up. It's really like a fast-paced side-scrolling action game where that you have to draw with your finger a lot. Um, it's not bad though. Um, I didn't. I only got one ending. Probably the worst ending because it's the simplest ending. But I did play for a little bit after that and unlock some extra stages, but I never actually finished. more of the endings. So I don't know. It's not that bad. Beyond that, well, I've been playing Disgaea 3 on the Vita also. Uh,
Okay, yep. I
oh,
really enjoyed that game.
yeah, I never played the PS3 version. Actually, I didn't before it even was announced. I'd assumed that they were going to make it on a handheld because they made Disgaea 1 and 2 on a handheld also. And I was
Hmm.
just like, I think I'd rather just play it on a handheld, so I'll wait for a handheld release. And
Smart man.
and I was waiting for that for 4 also, so I haven't played 4 yet. But they announced 4 for the Vita, so that's also I'll get that. And I'm assuming I haven't played D Disgaea D2 or whatever,
Hmm.
but I assume that it's going to get a Vita release eventually, so I'll just wait on that also, and hopefully it'll get a handheld release. It's so I've been playing Disgaea 3, and it's all right. I don't know how I feel about the characters so far. They're not as fun as the other games, I don't think.
So you definitely you had played one and two.
Yeah, I played 1 and 2 on the PSP, so
Okay.
but I don't know. I don't. I don't know. I like the Disgaea system a lot. So it's fun to go into the item world and fun to go through the stages and you know go through the story stages. That kind of thing I enjoy. So I've been through the story stages. Like I play each story stage twice because
Hmm.
if you go through the story stage once, there's a story, and then if you go back, there's like a different enemies there.
Okay.
So I always play through each story stage twice and then go to the next story section essentially.
So just because I was talking about this recently, I guess having some perspective on having played the first two games in this series, um, what do you think has you coming back to the Disgaea games, and do you think that you're getting what you want from them? I mean, you already sort of admitted maybe the characters you might have been better in the second or the first, but
Yeah, well, I don't know. This guy is just goofy, but
hmm.
it's goofy, and I'm not like a super huge fan of the Disgaea world. Like, I don't, it's not like I really love the characters in any of the games. And, the stories are always just something ridiculous. So
Yeah.
it's not something like I'm totally invested in. I just really like the battle systems for Disgaea. I
Hmm.
like the way you play the game. So, even if there was no story, they just like had a bunch of challenge maps for the whole thing, I would probably still play the game because I enjoy the kind of way that the system works. So I like the kind of challenges where it's not entirely, like we were talking about Project Cross Zone, where it's just like characters on a map, beat all the characters.
Yep.
There's lots of different ways that you can go about things. That you have the geo panels where you have to change there's like status effects that can change the way you have to fight the battle, or sometimes there's things like in the item world you don't have to fight anything at all. You can just keep going right to the exit and leveling up the item without fighting. So there's lots of different ways to play the game, and they're all fun.
I was really intimidated by the system. I think just because I hadn't actually played it, just looking at it, I was like, I I could never play that game. Which is totally is totally unfair to me and the game. Um, but I agree. I think that's kind of the cool thing about the game. Do you think? I feel like I'm putting words in your mouth, but do you think that that each game that comes out is like a good excuse to simply go back and revisit the battle system, or do you think that really you're looking for like more new, novel, interesting things in the battle system each time you go back?
Um, in general, I don't really care if they change the battle system or not. They
Hmm.
change it they change it every time. They add different features. But if it had just kept this simple system that was in Disgaea 1, which isn't really simple, but if they had just kept it as that throughout the entire series and changed nothing, I'd still play the game because the system is fun.
Mhm.
And each of the story maps is a new challenge within that system. So depending on the layout of the map and the enemies in the on the screen, like you have to think about it in a different way. And that's like mostly the reason I like strategy RPGs, is because you have to think about the actual strategy.
Mhm.
So you know that was like another thing with Project Cross Zone, is like most of the time you don't have to think of a strategy. You just have to kind of bunch your characters together and destroy everything.
Right. Right.
Whereas Disgaea, you can't really do that. You have to think about like what enemies are on the screen and what they can do. Whereas, like you could bunch all your enemies together and that would be good for fighting some enemies, but then you'll get magic users who will just destroy all your characters with one spell. So you have to think about where you place everybody and how you place them and what you're doing, and you have to make use of the geo panels, and it's a lot of stuff to think about, which is what I enjoy about the series, I think.
I uh I don't want to oversell it, but just that's one of the things I like about like the Superhero Chronicles, Queen's Blade, like Robot Tyson games too. I feel like it has strategy game stuff to it where it makes me feel like I'm actually thinking and coming up with a strategy, not, I mean, maybe more so than some games.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't played any of those, and I even yesterday I was thinking of buying one. But so it's the kind of thing where like I kind of like that kind of setup, I guess. So if you're gonna tell me that it's like that, I'll probably buy one next time I'm at the store. Which one do you recommend?
Oh, I mean, I guess for me, the only the only one that I've really played from start to finish is the first Queen's Blade. But I mean, because Superhero and Chronicle is coming out, I guess the main thing is I just don't know if that's the exact same battle system or not. I have to assume so, because it seems like it's structured exactly like those games. Um, but I guess I would say the first Queen's Blade would be the way to go. And probably any of the Robot Tyson games too. From what I've heard about them, they all play pretty similarly, and they all seem pretty great.
Except I don't like mechs, so it's kind of
Yeah,
Robot Tyson.
I mean Queen's Blade also has an armor break system, so
That's the clothes shattering system or whatever.
yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah. See, that's the reason I don't want to buy it.
Right.
When I look at it, I think, oh man, another game I can't play on the train.
Yeah.
But
Super. I mean, in that case, and we'll see. I'm not sure how Superhero and Chronicles deals with that kind of thing, but I don't think that there's a clothes breaking system. I could be wrong.
yeah, I don't know. I haven't. I'll look it up after we finish this. Let you know. Beyond that, I played a little bit of this game called the Combini. It's
Oh,
like a
nice.
convenience store simulator.
Oh, wow. Just, I mean, I want to play it now.
It's well, I mean, it's on the PlayStation One, but
Okay.
there are a bunch of other ones. So like, there's actually an Xbox 360 version. Um, of course, I think they're Japanese only, but it's a pretty long series. I mean, it's been running for a while, so you can get it on like PS1, PS2, and Xbox 360. But it's essentially a convenience store simulator. You have to like build the convenience store layout and then like run the store to be profitable, I guess.
How have you gotten very far?
Not really. I just started playing it, so it's part of. It was like a free download with PlayStation Plus.
Okay.
So I just picked that up recently and started. I've been playing it on the Vita intermittently, so I just laid out the convenience store essentially and started playing for a couple hours, basically trying to get my brain around the system.
Like, what are the Plus games like on PlayStation Plus?
Well, it depends on what you're doing, but it's just essentially a download. It works just like downloading a game in any normal way. So if you like, for example, if you download a PlayStation Archives game and you're a PlayStation Plus member and it's free, there's a ton that are like always free if you're a PlayStation Plus member,
Okay.
and you can just you just download it and play it like normal. But if you're not a PlayStation Plus member or like your account lapses, you just won't be able to play the game.
Right. Right. No, I mean I was thinking more like because I mean here it seems like the games that we get are really amazing. And I fired up my Japanese PSN account for the first time in forever the other day, and I just started thinking about it. I'm like, man, what if I could subscribe to Plus on my Japanese account? What kind of stuff would I have access to? But here it seems like we typically get like one or two big like interesting games from maybe 6 months to a year ago, um, that are just free to download, but it's limited. It's limited to like about a month that you can get it, or sometimes like you can get it in that time, and but then I mean if you have it, as long as you have Plus, you can play it. Or sometimes there'll actually be like a timed thing where like you can download it in this window, and then you have like a year to play it, and it'll time out after that.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
realize they timed out at some point.
Yeah, not all of them. Just it's like occasionally. I think I had Dead Space 2, which I actually never played before it timed out.
Hmm.
Which it was maybe, I don't know, 6 months or something like that. But a lot of times they're really good, like big releases. Well, I mean stuff like Dragon's Dogma.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, Dragon's Dogma. Oh wait, did Dragon's Dogma come with the Bitter Black Island stuff in it, or was
Hmm.
it just the base version?
No, it was the Dark Arisen version.
Yeah. Okay. I opened up my Vita and I'm looking at it right now. What came out? What's on PlayStation Plus this month?
Hmm.
There's a bunch of stuff, but I'm trying to look at what are the bigger stuff. Steins Gate is on there.
Really?
Yeah. The Katamari Damashi game
Okay.
for the Vita. Limbo is on there.
Yep.
I'm just looking at the Vita stuff right now, but there's a bunch of other stuff on there also that's like I'm trying to think. Oh, there's like TurboGrafx 16 stuff and PSP stuff. Like you can like the Legend of Heroes, the third Legend of Heroes game is on there for free right now.
Yep.
There's an Armored Core game.
Oh, nice.
There's a bunch of stuff though. A bunch of like PS archives too. So like King of Fighters 95 is on there. Shock Troopers.
Yep.
Chaos Head Noah is on there. That's like another one.
Yes.
That's like another one of those 5 PB mages games.
Okay. Yep. That's what I thought. Oh, that's really interesting. Huh.
So that's like this month. But if you go into the archives, you can see that there's like a ton more stuff that's always free. Like it never changes. It's always in the free section. But that Kombini game is one of those. So if you wanted to go into, I mean, you could get it if you have a Japanese PSN account. You can get the like a 15-day trial for free of PS Plus. So you can just go in and try out all the free games if you felt the need to.
I'll have to do that like sometime in the summer when I have
Yeah,
less of a backlog.
yeah. I feel like you know, I'm like a little crossed on PS Plus. Like I don't feel like I kind of want to play games with it, but I also don't want to like not have the physical copy.
Hmm.
So what I've been doing essentially with my PS Plus stuff is if I'm playing like the PS1 archives on the PS Plus, I usually just play it for games that I already own.
Okay.
So like I have Shadow Tower on the it was free for PS Plus, but I actually have the copy of it. So it's just like it's like me putting my PS1 disc into my Vita somehow.
It sounds like me with Resident Evil. Like I've got I think Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 just because the same sort of thing. Like it's on my shelf, but it's easier to just fire it up and it costs, $5 or something.
Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff like that. Like I have all the Shin Megami Tensei games well, I mean, I actually bought the archives, but I actually have physical copies of those. So it's the kind of thing where like, I just kind of want to play it on the Vita. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about. I like PS Plus, but I still want to have a physical copy of everything.
Right. I mean, maybe this isn't the right time to talk about this, but I mean, how do you feel about PlayStation Now? Is that
PlayStation Now, it seems like something I will never use. I
interesting? Okay.
it's not that I'm not like against it. I think it's a good idea, but it's not the kind of thing I want to do. I guess like it's just not the way I play games. I guess I'd like even like with PS like PSN like buying a game off of there.
Hmm.
At least it's on my system at that point. You know what I mean? Like I could play it
Yeah.
offline.
Yeah.
Whereas PlayStation Now is like even more restrictive than that. Like, I'm like not even like so happy about having to download stuff on PSN. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have a physical copy. But if there's
Hmm.
no other option, okay, PSN it is. But PlayStation Now is like even worse than that. It's like not even something I can download. Like, I don't even have it on my system. Like, I have to be using their system to use it. That's like too far gone for me.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like when I first started using Netflix, the thought occurred to me, I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this could be the end of having collections of DVDs and Blu-rays because if you just have a service that you pay a subscription to and you have access to every movie ever made, that's just how you can, consume all of your stuff. But of course, that ideal is, tarnished by the realities of the fact that, the movies don't stay on Netflix indefinitely. And they are sort of the final uh they're the single point of failure. If they don't have it and you don't have it, then you don't have it. So,
Yeah, that's like I don't know. That's how I kind of feel about it. It's just if if I'm gonna play something, I'd rather have it like so I can play it on my own terms.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Like PlayStation Now, although it does allow you a lot of interesting options, it doesn't seem like the kind of way that I want to play my games.
right, right.
And I mean, I've never used Netflix before because obviously it's not offered to me in Japan. But yeah, I mean, it seems like a good thing because some stuff like you want to watch but you don't want to buy.
Mhm.
But generally for old games, most of the stuff I wouldn't mind spending $5 to buy or $10 to buy. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like a lot of PS1 games, there's not like a ton of really expensive ones that I either don't have or haven't played. And then the same goes for like the PS2 and the PS3. Really, there's not anything that's like super rare that I really want. So PlayStation Now doesn't really save me money in the sense that I could actually just go out and buy that game.
Mhm.
And then I have the option of like if there's power, I mean like there's an internet outage, I could still play it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm starting to swing back to the idea of quality versus quantity. Um, just in, I realized that some of my buying habits, maybe in the past year or two, some of them have been like monetarily influenced to a certain extent, and I'm just realizing that that's actually it's a really kind of dangerous um, attitude, I think, to have because if I'm looking at games and I'm going, ooh, I'm going to get these games because they're cheap, all that I'm really doing is I'm piling onto myself, more games that I don't have time to play. And if I'm not willing to spend, you know, some sort of reasonable amount of money on it, then I probably don't want that game all that much.
Yeah, I can understand that only because you know I tend to make lists. This is the reason I make lists because generally if I'm interested in something, I just put it on the list, whatever it is. The list is huge, and if I find a game that's if it's cheap, all right, great. But I don't buy generally. I don't buy games because they're cheap. I generally buy them because I have some interest in them. So I've read up on them, or I read about them, and I'm interested in the concept, or maybe I like the company, or maybe I like the you know style of game that it is, and I want to try this one. So generally, that's how I'm selecting the games I buy. So
Hmm.
it price is like, obviously I look for the cheapest version. If I
Sure.
mean I can get the same game for a cheaper price, I'll do that. But if I see like, oh, here's a bunch of games I'm not really interested in, but they're $1, I'll probably just pass on them anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Like I do sort of wonder if you have a whole bunch of games, at your fingertips. It's like, I mean, I guess as long as the service has games that you want to play, then, that works out. But it's the the quantity of games I don't think should be as much of a factor as, do they have things that you actually want to play? But
Yeah, well, I think like it also adds to the kind of um, not giving games a fair shot.
hmm
If you have access to like 1,000 games and you play a game for 30 minutes and you decide like this is all right, or this is okay, or you're just playing it for a short time to decide if it's okay, like you never really get like the full experience of a game. You just be like, oh yeah, I played that, it was all right. And then
hmm
you never, because you have so many other options, you just go on to the next thing and play that. It kind of like gives you this kind of bite-sized gameplay ability that isn't really conducive to getting like a full experience of a game, which is how I'd assume like the game should be played. You should probably play up through most of it to at least get the idea of how the game is going to play and what it turns into, and if you like it or not, based on the experience of actually playing it as opposed to sampling it.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean definitely like um, just Criminal Girls that I've been playing, like not even just in the story, but also in the elements of the battles, fighting the bosses, things like that. I don't feel like nuances of that really have come out until just the most recent stuff that I've played in the game. Um,
Well, I think of a game like Dark Souls. Like
mhm.
if you played a half an hour of Dark Souls, you would die like 30 times, and you would be like, I'm done with this game, and you'd never go back to it.
That was my experience.
Yeah, well, the thing is like if you bought Dark Souls, like if you spent $50 on Dark Souls, like even if you died 30 times in the first half hour, you would be like, well, I just spent $50 on this. I should probably get into it and play it.
Sure.
And like having the option to just like, well, I didn't pay anything for this. I'm just paying a subscription fee. I'll never get into it. Like I think you lose out on the fun of playing games,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
No,
is something that I think I don't know. It's detrimental in some ways to players and obviously game companies, and I mean in the sense that their games probably won't have that ability to become as popular if everybody was using that same service.
right. Right. Well, I feel like we've gotten a little off topic here.
Yes, we have.
So, so I guess in handhelds, any like closing summary?
The last thing I wanted to mention about the handhelds was that because we're mainly talking about Japan, they're a
Hmm.
lot stronger here than they are in other places. And you know, the thing like for example, the Vita here sells twice as much as the Wii U generally,
Hmm.
for example. But in the U.S., it's the opposite. The Wii U sells way more than the Vita,
Hmm.
and the libraries are quite different. So, I mean, I was talking to my friend in the U.S. about how I love the Vita, how it he should get one because there's so many good games, and it, what happens is I remember that all the games that I love on the Vita are not released in the U.S. Like for the most part, like most of the stuff I'm enjoying is not released outside of Japan,
Hmm.
and looking at my 3DS collection, probably about 75% of that stuff is released in the US or is planned to be released. So it's
Yes.
the kind of thing where, I can understand why people aren't really hyped for the Vita in the US because the library is so different. And I can understand why this 3DS sells more because it does have, it does actually get games localized, whereas the Vita is seemingly doesn't get as many.
Yeah, no, I mean it really has system sellers. It has, Etrian Odyssey and Fire Emblem and Theater Rhythm and Mario games. There's really a lot of stuff on the 3DS, but I do feel like I don't know if people took note of it, but this holiday season I feel like really added to the Vita's library. Um, and I mean things like Monster Monpiece and Conception 2 and stuff, things that I never thought would come out over here are being localized. So I think it's starting to turn around.
Yeah, I hope so because it seems to be it's doing relatively well. I mean, comparatively well in Japan, and it's doing all right in Europe, and not so good in the U.S. And the 3DS is doing pretty well everywhere. So I think it's weird because even though the sales are that way, as I said, my list of games I want for the Vita is 3 times the size of my 3DS list. It's it's got like so many more games. So I always feel like in my case, the Vita has so many more games that I want to play than the 3DS does. And it's weird. I always think it's weird that people think of the Vita as kind of a system with not many games.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping that turns around. I mean, because I'm in a similar position, just the things that I have pre-ordered right now, it's one thing for the 3DS, one thing for the PlayStation 3, and then I think like 4 games for the Vita, um, 3 of which are US releases.
Yeah, that's it's pretty telling there as to I guess fans of Japanese games as we are.
Yes.
Um, what where the where the good stuff is coming, I guess. It's weird though that I'm like you. I don't have a lot of stuff pre-ordered for consoles at the moment. I have like Dark Souls 2 and the new Yakuza game, and beyond that, everything else I have pre-ordered is for handhelds. So I think like even people who not even just the Vita, people who don't play handhelds at all are really missing out on a lot of great games. And like if you saw my top games of 2013, like literally half of that list is handheld games.
Hmm.
So it's the kind of thing where, people should hop on handheld if they don't have one because you're missing out on a whole section of games that you would miss out on otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. And it's not just, kind of quirky Japanese games and things like that. I really think um it's the space where we're gonna see just a lot of really good stuff this gen. Just when you think about the fact that the Vita is somewhat comparable in power to the PlayStation 3 from, last gen, the handhelds are getting a lot of power, and they also, I think, take advantage of all of the kind of development infrastructure and developers being able to make games for these systems and take more chances and really do something that isn't technically, I mean maybe it's technically inferior to like the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, but that's a much different situation than it was back when the first Game Boy came out and it had to be black and white in a world of color because
Hmm.
technology was so different.
Yeah, that's also a good point. I think a lot of the thing with the 3DS and the Vita right now is that it's an area where I think people can do a bit more, you know, uh, testing out new things.
Hmm.
So you can get a bit more innovation on those than you can on consoles where development is a lot more expensive now. And I think that a lot of the time that has to do with, obviously it's a monetary issue, but the the reason developers in Japan seem to develop for handhelds a lot more is because they're not based on the same system as the US market is. They're not like it's not like a kind of binary system where you're either a AAA developer or you're an indie developer or you're crap. I guess
Yeah,
that's
it's not like go big or go home, and that's really how it is here.
yeah, where it is in Japan, there's like a healthy bell curve of developers. You have a low end, a mid range, and a high end, and it's you know a lot of the developers kind of fall into that mid range, which is you know you it's healthy. You know what I mean? You don't have to, everybody doesn't have to spend a lot of money to make a game, and it kind of because the market is so the base of the market, who the developers are, and what kinds of games they're making is so different. Like it kind of gives you know the general feeling that Japanese games are mediocre, where it means like they're not. It's not that they're mediocre; it's that they're mid-range games that you don't get in the U.S. because there's no mid-range developers anymore.
Hmm.
So it's the kind of thing that you know handhelds are really good for because those mid-range developers can make like a high quality, at least high quality in terms of handhelds type games. So like a mid-range console game could easily be a high quality console game. I mean a handheld game.
Right. And I mean maybe if people, I don't know, maybe young people in particular that are, um, they're kind of used to seeing these high quality graphics and maybe, didn't grow up playing the NES or the Master System or, kind of the 8-bit and 16-bit games. Um, if you can be a little bit more lenient in the graphics department, because something is on a handheld, I think it opens up just a lot more possibilities for interesting games, than kind of the bar that is set for games that come out on the main consoles.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty evident also because even things like Fire Emblem, like if you look at Fire Emblem, it's not a very pretty game, and all the character models have no feet.
Right.
So it's the kind of thing where like it's not exactly like a high quality production there. Um, but it's still a super great game, and I think if you made a console game with where all the character models had no feet, people would think it was like it was awful. It would be bashed like all the time for terrible graphics or whatever. But Fire Emblem on the 3DS, nobody really cared.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that actually really makes me think that they should have made uh Time and Eternity, Toki and Toa on the handhelds.
Yeah, it's possible that it would have done better there. Oh, I mean, everybody hated that game though.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, like it wasn't just the U.S. that hated that game. It got rated as like the worst game of the year in Japan.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. Um, I feel bad because I mean, one of my friends actually he played through it to the end. I think he might have even started playing it a second time. Um, and that's got to be on my short list to play because I really want to be able to kind of chime in with an informed opinion about it.
Yeah, I don't plan on playing it. It's it doesn't look like the kind of thing I would enjoy, and I've got so much stuff to play,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm always like kind of iffy on stuff Image Epoch makes, even though I tend to buy a lot of stuff that they make. Half of it tends to be not so good.
Yeah,
So it's kind of hit or miss with them, and
yeah.
it doesn't look like something I'd be interested in. So it's even if it's like fun, if even half of the complaints people are making about it are true, I probably won't enjoy it.
I mean, I definitely really liked what I've played of it, but like I said, I'm reserving judgment completely until I've really dug into it.
Yeah, I haven't like yeah, obviously I haven't played it, so I don't have any like solid opinion. But it even before then, when they were just showing trailers, I thought like this doesn't look like something I want to play. Not because I thought like the animation was bad or anything. It was because it just didn't look like something I was interested in.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't think I have anything else. Um,
Yeah, I'm pretty much okay with ending the old podcast here. I guess that's the end of this episode, the end of the second episode of the Japanese Gaming Podcast. So, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Catch you next time.